Hello, my name is Jamie Carrier, LCSW and doctoral candidate. For this presentation, I'll be sharing insights from two educators who have shaped my understanding of teaching. Their names are not included for privacy, so I will refer to them as Professor A and Professor B. I'll walk through the guiding questions from this assignment, how they teach, their approaches, what they value, how they grade, how they think about attendance, and what they identify as most important. Finally, I'll reflect on what I hope to adapt into my own evolving teaching philosophy. Let's begin with the first question. How do they teach? For the first question, I asked, how do they teach? Professor A described her classroom as narrative, log driven. She integrates real world case studies and current events, saying, I'm not a big lecturer. I like to have a lot of dialogue. Her approach reflects a constructivist orientation where knowledge is co created with students. Professor B, in contrast, builds from structured mini lectures and reflective journals. Her style reflects a positivist orientation, where clarity and consistency allow learning to be measured fairly. So while their teaching methods look different, the next question reveals even more about their guiding approach. The next question was, what's your approach? Professor A emphasized adaptability and relationships. She adapts her delivery and feedback to meet students where they are, prioritizing empowerment and belonging. Professor B focused on accountability and fairness. She believed consistency is a form of care, stating clarity and consistency create fairness for all students. These different approaches naturally shape how each professor thinks about grading, which was my next question. I then asked, how do you grade? Professor A uses rubrics, but selectively focuses feedback on two or three key growth areas at a time, aligning with Probst's 2010 argument that strengths based feedback empowers students rather than overwhelming them. Professor B applies rubrics strictly and uniformly. She explained, high expectations show students, I believe, in their potential. For, their, for her, fairness means holding all students to the same standard. If grading reveals their standards for performance, their views on attendance show how they define real engagement. Next, I asked, how do you think about attendance? Because Professor A teaches online, she interprets attendance as evidence of engagement, logins, discussion posts, and study effort. Professor B teaching in person views attendance as both presence and verbal contributions. She sometimes uses cold calls to ensure accountability, reflecting her beliefs that participation prepares students for professional responsibility. Beyond grading and attendance, I wanted to know what professor values most in their classrooms. The next question was, what do you value? Professor A values relationships, empowerment, and DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. She shared belonging in the classroom enhances learning. Professor B values fairness, clarity, and professional responsibility. She believes structure frees students to focus on learning, echoing Nilsson's 2016 emphasis on equity through clarity. But values are not the same as daily priorities. So I asked them the next question, what's most important to you? The final question I asked was, what's most important to you? Professor A told me what's most important to me is making sure students feel like their voices matter. For her, the heart of teaching is ensuring students feel heard and included even when challenged. Professor B responded that fairness and preparing students for professional life are most important. She believes high expectations communicate belief in students' potential and readiness for the real world. Hearing these perspectives side by side challenged me to reflect on how I want to integrate them into my own teaching framework. Reflecting on both professors, I realized I don't want to choose between compassion and accountability. I want both. I call this framework relational rigor. It combines professors A's relational focus on inclusion and empowerment with Professor B's structured focus on fairness and accountability. This balance reflects Probe's 2010 strengths perspective, Fink's 2013 idea of transformative learning, and Nilsson's 2016 commitment to learner-centered equity. To practice, this means I hope to create classrooms where students feel their voices matter, but also where structure provides safety for deep, transformative learning. To close, I want to briefly acknowledge the readings that supported this presentation. Probst 2010 emphasized the role of the strengths perspective in social work education, which helped me interpret Professor A's feedback style as empowerment focused. Fink's 2013 highlighted the importance of transformative learning, reminding me that significant education is about more than knowledge. It's about growth in who students become. Graham, 1997, critiqued traditional paradigms and emphasized collaboration, which aligned closely with Professor A's constructivist dialogical approach. Grice, Owens, and colleagues 2018 stressed congruence between values and classroom practices, which I saw in both professors' grading and attendance policies. Finally, Nilsson's 2016 emphasized learner-centered equity and the power of clarity, which resonated with Professor B's structured approach to fairness. Together, these works provided the frameworks I used to interpret the insights I gained from Professor A and B. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Take care.